awesome. It was amazing.
All right. Okay. Okay, so I think we've all had conversations with people, right? And sometimes those conversations, something's said in that conversation, and it just rings in your mind for the days to come. And you're sitting there and you're just like, man, why did they say that? Why did they say it like that? Mm-hmm. And it just changes your mindset for a while. I actually had that happen just a couple weeks ago. I went and introduced myself to somebody. I'm like, hey, I'm Shane. They're like, I know who you are. And I was like, oh, okay. I'm going to have this whole thing that I was going to say, and they were like, just threw me off. And then it just, that has been ringing in my mind, and I'm like, man, I've never met this person before. Like, what is going on? Well, that changed my whole atmosphere for the next couple of weeks, and it's just been going through my head. And today I want to take a look at Elisha and how he changed the atmosphere around him, and what we can do to change the atmosphere around us when some things happen. And today it's going to be in 2 Kings chapter 3, and to give a little preference about it, it's King Moab. The king of Moab was like, hey, I'm not going to give the king of Israel this 100,000 sheep and 100,000 wool of ram anymore. He decided he's going to rebel. And so the king of Israel was like, I don't think so. And so he gathered a couple of his buddies, the king, 2 more kings, and was like, hey, let's go attack, let's go to war, because they're not giving me what they owe me. So they decided to do that. They're going to go through the south instead of the north, which was kind of different. And so they're going to Moab, and they go from the south, and they realize we've been marching for 7 days, and now we have no water. Our animals, our livestock, our men, they're thirsty. There's nothing. The creek is dried up. And then the king of Judah was like, there's got to be a prophet of God amongst us. There has to be a prophet of God amongst us. And so they're like, you know what? Elisha is here. And so Elisha, they go to the tent. I'll pick up in verse 10. And it says, the king of Israel said, alas, the Lord has called these 3 kings to give them to the hand of Moab. And Jehoshaphat said, is there no prophet of the Lord here, though whom we may inquire of the Lord? Then one of the king of Israel's servants answered, Elisha, he is here. He poured water on the hands of Elijah. And Jehoshaphat said, the word of the Lord is with him. So the king of Israel, Jehoshaphat, the king of Edom, went down to him. And Elisha said to the king of Israel, what have I to do with you? Go to the prophets of your father and to the prophets of your mother. But the king of Israel said to him, no, it is the Lord who has called these 3 kings to give them into the hand of Moab. And Elisha said, as the Lord of hosts lives, before whom I stand, were it not that I have regard for Jehoshaphat, the king of Judah, I would neither look at you nor see you. But bring me a musician. And when the musician played, the hand of the Lord came upon him. And it ended up being, there's water in the stream, and there's absolutely no rain, and they won the war. But what I want to talk about today is these kings, they knew that the Lord was with Elisha, and they knew that Elisha could give them a word from the Lord in their situation. Now Elisha, he respected them as the prophet, respected them as a king, but because Elisha was a prophet, he called them out on their wickedness, and he cared enough to see God change them. And so Elisha called for the musicians, and when the musicians began to play, we read in the word that the Lord came upon him. And he changed the atmosphere. Elisha wasn't going to allow the wickedness of these kings to come into his tent and control his climate, his atmosphere, his mindset. Yeah. He said, no. Let's bring in some musicians. If you want to work from the Lord, I'm going to bring the presence of the Lord to us right here, right now. And so he chose to change things around him instead of being influenced by who was in his tent. Wow. You know, today, there's some people today that can walk into a room and they bring a giant smile to your face. You know, when they walk into the room, it's just going to be fun, it's going to be joyful, it's going to be a good time. But at the same time, there's some people when they walk into the room, you're like, oh no. What are they going to say? What are they going to ask for? What's going to happen? You realize that your demeanor might change, your attitude might change, your facial expressions can even change. And the problem is somebody can walk into the room and just like that, the atmosphere changes, whether that can be good or it can be bad. And sometimes when we feel surrounded by the enemy, or if we're surrounded by negative people, bad job situations, when there's a rough patch in our marriage, when we're struggling with our kids, when there's things going on that can almost kind of seem out of our control, we know that we can call upon God and that we can take that control back. We can take that atmosphere back and not allow the enemy to control the atmosphere, but instead we're like, I know the presence of God can come and I'm going to play this music and I'm going to have him upon me, and you're not going to influence me in a negative way, but I'm going to influence you into a positive way. And so just like Elisha, we can fill our hearts and our minds with the songs of the Lord. We can play worship music. We can play praises to fill the room. We can influence our hearts and our minds. And sometimes the enemy, he's knocking on our door. Just like those kings were knocking on Elisha's tent. But instead of allowing the witness to fill his tent, Elijah called for the musicians to control and to fill the atmosphere with the praises of the Lord. And the Lord honored that. And he spoke to Elijah. And he came upon Elijah. So when situations and people, when they come around and we feel our atmosphere begin to change, we need to quickly take control of that, control of our emotions, and allow just to have those praises of the Lord just going through our minds instead. Have his presence, his word, his praises to influence our atmosphere instead of them controlling us and changing our atmosphere. Fill our minds, and then we begin to change those around us.
Amen.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Very good. Give me some feedback.